currently struggling with, I mean, one of them is that there is an increasing trend among advertisers, and I run some advertising-based businesses. There's an increasing trend among advertisers to want to surveil the people whom they advertise to. So they want huge amounts of information from them. And I don't think they know why they want it. I mean, I've worked in advertising, and I think that like it kind of works like this. You go to the ad buyer, and the ad buyer says, yeah, we're going to buy ads on this kind of, internet property, and we're going to try and direct it in the following ways, and we'll get a lot of intelligence out of it. And then the ad buyer goes to like a brokerage, and the brokerage's model is, we sell to the ad buyers, but what we really do is do a huge amount of data mining about personal preferences for other services, for like dynamic ad placement stuff, the real-time auction stuff. And also because we've been told that there's gold on our hills, and we told our VCs that, and it kind of, we're not sure what we want it for, but we know we want it. And so there's this huge amount of collateral surveillance that isn't actually directly relevant to the advertising. But there's just there because it's the path of least resistance for advertisers. And there's a few problems with this. I mean, one is the PRISM problem, that collecting huge amounts of information in private databases makes it available to states who, frankly, the surveillance sector in Western governments is operating entirely without adult supervision and is grabbing, titanic amounts of information from the private sector with very little oversight, thanks to very broad laws like the Patriot Act and FISA. So that's part of it, this that we're feeding the surveillance state. But a much more immediate problem with it is that the audience, which may in fact not mind seeing ads on a web page, is concerned about being tracked. And so they're deploying ad blockers that block ads in vast numbers at great expense to the publishers like me. And the only way to get around those ad blockers would be to make the ads local, to run them off our own server so that they'd be indistinguishable as far as the browser is concerned from any other content we serve, and then reporting back to the advertisers what the count was, which is what we used to do. The advertisers just hate this idea because they've been sold this big data, kind of pie in the sky story. And so that's an actual real problem. And then the third part of it is that some of the companies that are gathering huge amounts of information on people are doing creepy things with them that as a user of the internet I don't want done. Things like price discrimination, like charging more because they figured out that from your browsing habits, from your demographics, that you can afford more. I would prefer not to, in terms of like a negotiation, if this is a retail negotiation where they're making an offer and I'm making an offer and we're seeing whether or not they meet in the middle, I want to be able to control what information I give to the other side of the negotiation, right? That's just like, it's negotiation 101, right? So there's lots of good reasons for people, even who aren't concerned about privacy per se, not to want to do this. So this is disruptive. The story about data mining, which I think is a vastly oversold story. I think there's that when you look at these huge corpuses of data, it's very easy to find spurious correlations because there's so much data. And it's very hard, as it's always been with advertising, to test the relationship between an hypothesis and an outcome. So, the people say, oh, well, I think that our sales went up because I did this, or I think our sales haven't gone up because we failed to data mine people more. But from like an actual like science perspective, those conclusions are very weakly supported. It's not rigorous at all, and yet we're just kind of expanding the pool of information we're gathering by leaps and bounds. And so that not only is costing publishers money, which I regret as a publisher and as someone who sells creative material to publishers. It's not just that I run a publishing business. I write things for other people's publishing businesses, but it's also it's also creating this database nation. I was always skeptical of parental filters, and one thing about having a kid who's pretty technically precocious, not because I think that I've passed it to her in my genes or anything, just because, you know, kids do what their parents do. So she's been picking up the tablets we have lying around the house since she was old enough to hold them, and she's come to gain proficiency in them through practice, not you know, every parent wants to believe their kid is a super genius. I think my kid's very bright, but I don't flatter myself that this is why she's good at it. So having a kid who can sort of pilot a tablet and cruise around YouTube, going from one video to the next, has shown me that what parents worry about in terms of parental filters is almost entirely misplaced. You know, when my daughter was a little smaller, she's now becoming literate. She can sound out words, but when she was totally pre-literate, the kind of tablet practice was that she would pick up a tablet or a phone and she'd ask for a cartoon like Dora the Explorer. And I'd find her one. And she would watch it. And then at the end it would get some related videos. And if you could read the captions, you could see it said, Dora the Explorer en español, Dora the Explorer en français. But she couldn't. So she would just tap one of them and she'd get in another language. And she was happy as anything to watch Dora the Explorer in whatever language it was on. Having a great time, cruising along, watching Dora the Explorer. Then she would watch it in Russian, and then in Portuguese, and then in whatever, and I could hear it going. And then she'd hit like the kind of thing that you would expect parental filters to stop. She'd hit Dora the Explorer with someone shouting curse words over top of it. So they'd dubbed in, you know, sort of pornographic, ultra-violent dialogue. And her reaction to this was like just total indifference. She would come over and she would say, Daddy, it's doing it again, fix it. And I'd recenter her on Dora in English, and back we'd go. Never any kind of visible lasting effect on her from hearing naughty words. But one day she's sitting there and moving around on the tablet. And, you know, we always sit in the same room when she's using a tablet. So she's using the tablet, and I listen over, and I could hear that this is not a cartoon. And I look over, and it's a Mattel ad that would have never passed advertising standards for Barbie. And what it is it's like a 4-year-old narrating her Barbie collection. This is my Barbie X, and my mommy and daddy gave it to me because they love me very much. And this is my Barbie Y, and this is my Barbie toys, and this is my Barbie clothes. And it was like a cobra and a mongoose, like total fascination. And it was the only time I couldn't get her to give me back the tablet. And when I finally did, and I wrestled it away, I said, you know, we don't watch adverts in our house. And we've had that discussion. Adverts aren't good for kids. She said, okay. But for weeks later, she would turn to me and say, Daddy, do you remember when I was looking at the tablet and there were those dolls and all those toys? Do you think we could go and get those toys? Right? So, like, there is no parental filter in existence that filters out Barbie ads. But of all the things that my kid has spuriously seen on the internet, the only one that's caused any friction around our household and has worked her mind is the Barbie ad. So I guess that's the one of the major insights I've had, is that when we talk about parental filters, generally speaking, we're not talking about the things that cause real problems for adults.